Okay. Well, I just can't wait any longer. I'm too excited to get started. So welcome everybody. I'm Stacy Caldwell, the CEO of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. And it's just good to see everyone again. It's been quite a summer. And as you know, we all kind of took a pause. And I think for many of you, that pause was maybe not by choice. And we were just listening to Maria talk about her evacuation for 6 weeks. And so for those of you who've been impacted by the wildfires, I just want to send out my and the team's heartfelt support to you. We've opened our emergency response fund and continue to send dollars in both directions to support your communities, and just want to be a resource for anyone who needs that, and any direction we can help point you. And then for those of you who are professionals who've been on the work itself, we want to recognize how exhausting fire season is getting for everyone every year, and just want to thank you for your service. So hopefully today we can kind of take our brains to a place in which we have the luxury and privilege to stay in front of what could be a catastrophic wildfire within our own immediate regional community of Tahoe Truckee. And we're excited to kind of give you an update on the activities at the Community Foundation since we last spoke. And I just want to acknowledge the team that has come together to help work on this. Teal Zimring, who many of you know, who have hosted these salons for us in the past, is still part of the team. She has a babysitting challenge right now and might join us a little bit later. But as we get started, I think, this is really an opportunity to just share what we've been up to, and then give you a little bit of a teaser on future salons as well. So with that, I'm going to, thank you, Caroline, ask Caroline to share our deck. And today we want to give you a recap and walk you through how we got to where we're at, talk to you about the walks and the input that we've received to develop our campaign strategy that we're currently focused on. We'll introduce you to our new team members, and we'll walk you through our impact strategy. And so with that, and maybe not in totally that order, TTCF's mission is to connect people and opportunities, generating resources to build a more caring, creative, and effective community. We like to say that we work with smart people to take good ideas, apply the resources, and make good things happen in our region. And we are overseen by an amazingly smart and engaged board of directors. And I recognize Kristen York is on the call today. Thank you, Kristen. And these are the individuals who oversee the activities and set the vision of TTCF. In addition, you might notice some new faces at TTCF, and I'll go a little deeper into that, but we have indeed grown and added capacity to the team, and we just feel incredibly blessed and honored that these amazing women have engaged in the mission work with the rest of us. So I recognize Caroline is here, Kate, Kathy. You'll get to meet Nicole. I'm trying to see if anybody else is on the team here. Sorry, let me just make sure I don't miss. Sasha. There we go. Yeah, great. Okay, next slide, please. So yeah, let's go on to the next slide. Again, I don't have to tell you that this has been yet another daunting wildfire season, and this time it has been incredibly close to home, with fires literally flanking all sides of us at different points throughout the summer, and continued personnel and efforts are on the Dixie and the Caldwell. Next slide. These continue to come at us, and we're not through the woods. I'm pretty sure the campfire started in November. I was looking for that confirmation. And so, every year we're just seeing larger and larger fires and faster. Next slide. It just continues to be not only a threat to our communities and community assets, but we're losing ground on investments we've already made in our climate action work as a state. Next slide. And so at TTCF, we have continued with our emergency response fund, but this summer we found ourselves turning it into more of a disaster relief effort for the wildfire victims, paying it forward with our neighboring communities. And we've had a partnership with 101.5 who has generously used their airwaves to help let people know that our neighboring communities can use those resources, and we have partnered with the community foundations that are in those areas. We just, as a community foundation, see the power in what community foundations do. They're on the ground, they know the different nonprofit leaders, they know where services are needed and how dollars are flowing into those regions and can best deploy the resources. And so our efforts for the wildfire relief thus far has really been to get the dollars out the door to the community foundations that serve those communities. Hold on, my dogs are about to bark. I need to shut the door. My vicious guard dogs. Okay, and then the other area that we've been focused on is disaster preparedness. And so another little fun fact about community foundations across the state of California is that we have really positioned ourselves to be the beneficiary of philanthropy when disasters happen. And so our colleagues have had a lot of experience in how to organize and coordinate, not only on the back end of a disaster, but setting up structures and ways in which community can work together to prepare for those moments, with the wildfires or earthquakes or the horrendous mass shootings. Every one of these disasters has called upon resources to deploy. And so we received a grant from the League of California Community Foundations in order to put together a plan around a community organization active in disaster or COAD model. And we will have a plan in place after that, but we've been working across the region with different partners to put that in place. Next slide. And just kind of backing into how TTCF has been involved in environmental work throughout the region. Much of our grant making goes in different directions, from safety net organizations to arts and culture to youth and education. But relevant to this particular conversation is the work that we have done as grantee or as a grant maker for many of the important organizations across this region doing the important work in the forest. Next slide. And as we started thinking about what is our role in respect to these organizations that are in the region, and as a grant maker, how do we shape a programmatic strategy focused on the forest? And here you'll see the advisors who really got us to a point in which we are to where we are today. And so their fingerprints are on this work, and we're just so grateful for their time and energy guiding us to this moment. Next slide, please. In addition, many of you will recognize Teal and Robert as our campaign consultants to really help think through, again, how we position the community foundation in a way that isn't counterproductive, distracting, or in competition to the good work that is taking place throughout the region. Next slide. So we've hosted a number of salons, of which many of you have been a part of, and we have really learned. We've learned a lot, honestly. If you were with us in those early years, we were at our annex space, which has now been given back to the hospital during COVID. They needed that. So We don't have our swanky little gathering space that only really held about 25 people. And moving it to the virtual format has truly allowed us to engage a much broader stakeholder network. And interestingly enough, because the salons used to be in the evening with a few glasses of wine and a bunch of pizza, imagine that, people didn't really want to show up at the end of a workday on Zoom and get on a Zoom and have a salon. And so we moved them up earlier in the day. And what ended up happening there was a lot of the people who do this work for a living started to show up to the conversation and engage in the subject matter expert panelists that Teal would help put together. And we just saw this really amazing opportunity happen that has truly shaped what you're going to learn more about today in this campaign that we're working on. And so we will move forward with our salons, but we're going to kind of start to reintroduce more of the community engagement, donor engagement level conversation. And what we're kind of starting to position right now with Teal is thinking about what that kind of subject matter expert stakeholder group looks like and what is the right place for those conversations, because we just don't want to lose that momentum and that input. It's just been incredibly valuable in helping the Community Foundation really ground ourselves in what's possible, honestly. So more to come on that front, but at the end of this, we'll flash these dates up again and make sure that you have them on your calendar. Next slide. And so, yes, this just acknowledges just this myriad of groups that have participated and been featured in our salons over the years. And again, really influenced the way we think about the work. Next slide. What is this? I think it's the same thing. I think I just said all that. Yeah, let's move on to the next one. Okay, yeah. So it's basically, here we are. This is what we've been working on over the summer. And what I can tell you about this is when we last left you, we really were talking about, actually, if we can take the deck off, I wanna see people's faces for a second. If you recall, we really have been looking at a forest venture lab, and this idea of a space and place to bring innovative solutions and kind of stimulate new market-based solutions for the forest. And we think that there is a real role for that to play in long-term systemic solutions to the forest. But as we really started to kind of walk that around and think about what is our true role and how are we going to make a significant impact in what is one of the gnarliest challenges we face, we felt like we needed to broaden that spectrum a little bit. And so where innovation is important, so much of what you guys have informed with us is that some of the stuff that we really need to focus on is just not that sexy and not that innovative. And we need to embrace all aspects of the work ahead. And so we broadened our scope beyond focus just on market-based innovation and really looked at the whole system and where, as a community foundation, we might be able to have an impact. And so, I think about some of the committee meetings that we had, kind of looking at what our role is and just getting a little bit of like a reality check of like, all of these, different technologies and ways that we could make a difference are important. And let's make sure to not push them off the table, but let's make sure that we also talk about the infrastructure and the workforce and the projects that have to scale, the public funding and the advocacy that needs to come into play. So I hope what you're about to see is a more comprehensive approach in which you'll see that venture lab, seed idea have its place within something bigger. Okay, now we're ready to go back. Sometimes it's just easier for me to look at faces, even if it's just a few of y'all at this point. Okay, so Forest Futures, a regenerative solution. You'll notice that, right off the bat, we're recognizing that the solution has to have a regenerative angle, just like the forest itself. You'll also notice that we aren't really kind of putting Tahoe Truckee right up front in the name of that. And in part, you'll kind of understand that, our forests are relevant to way beyond this region. And while this region is known and is beautiful and worthy of preservation, there are a lot of lessons to learn from the work that's taking place here. And also our forests don't know boundaries. And so this is a much more expansive vision for the Community Foundation in the sense that the work that we do, it will be centered on primarily benefiting our regional community of North Lake Tahoe Truckee. But we also acknowledge that some of the work we do is going to go beyond just those boundaries. And you'll see some examples in those in the work ahead. Okay, next slide. So really, I'm giving you a modified version of this, and I'm just getting to the what is this. We believe that there are 4 areas of impact that we can focus on as a community foundation. Within each of these areas of impact, we also recognize a stakeholder group. And of course, you can hold space and passion for multiple ones of these, but hopefully you'll hear some of the why, because it's truly in the interests of our community and the variety of stakeholders, whether you're an environmentalist or an impact investor or somebody who just has a home here and is trying to figure out how to make things work, or a 3rd generation, second homeowner. Hopefully there's something here for everybody to see and find their way into this conversation and this campaign. And so, that first area of impact is really around healthy forests. These are I want this place to be protected for the next generation. Just make sure that we're safe. The second is, it's tough living up here. The economy is a bit of a one-hit wonder. When it snows or if it's smoky, we're relying more on our safety net organizations because people can't make ends meet. So perhaps we can use this challenge to build out a more robust economic opportunity for our region. The third is around climate action, and it's a growing number of community members and donors who want to align every activity around climate action. And it makes sense. I mean, every community across the globe is facing some form of climate change, and how they mobilize and take action will be important. And what is presenting itself to our community, in addition to greenhouse gas emission, et cetera, is really our forests. And so we believe that not only is this our way of making significant climate action take place, but we're also building a model around it. And for those of you who know the Community Foundation, you know how much we love models that we can share. The fact that Bozeman, Montana is launching a mountain housing council might be an example of the way we like to kind of bundle up community engagement and impact into models that others can borrow. And then finally, the third area I like to say is, if anybody has been to SoCap, this is for the SoCappers. We need to think about using finance differently in tackling these challenges. And we believe that the Community Foundation is positioned to bring a more robust and sophisticated toolkit to bear, much like we have with some of our housing work and our safety network. And so as we kind of click through these next slides, you'll see that each of these areas of impact, Caroline, if you can move to the next slide, kind of produce a bit of a case statement for you to, think about as it relates to each of the areas of impact. And then we present some of the solutions that we've encountered in the wild, if you will, that we believe need additional funding and leveraged resources. And so again, if your passion is really focused on preserving our community and protecting it, then the types of solutions are going to be around things like expanding neighborhood defensible space and making it, ensuring that all of our community members have access to the resources to protect their properties and their neighboring properties, fire breaks, a green waste sorting facility in one location or two, just to be able to get the biomass out and figure out if there can be value extracted. And finally, educating and engaging the communities so that they're in lockstep with any of the solutions that need to be worked on. The next slide rather, is this one around expanding on economic development. And I mean, we do have a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot of infrastructure that is missing, and you can see that in our inability to really deal with the amount of biomass around us, and whether it's a biomass facility that can heat one of the resorts, or it's standing up a large equipment leasing company, which, as many of you know, we refer to as the Tonka trucks, and are still passionate about increasing the amount of Tonka trucks in the region, to workforce development and ensuring that there is a future workforce for all that is in front of us. And so, that is really kind of what we're leaning into as it relates to expansion on that. Next slide, around climate action, is really, again, looking at strategies that will help us, come out with a higher use of the biomass if possible. And also, very importantly, advocating for the public funds that are available so that we can scale and speed the forest management projects. And so we see structuring a lot of our funds that we can bring to bear as matching dollars, so that our nonprofits that are going after those funds can be more competitive and ensure that we get our fair share of resources. Next slide. And then finally, on the transformational finance, it's really, kind of a nod to this idea that we can do more than just grant making. We can actually set up we can set up a loan fund that provides below market lending. We could look at impact investments within an endowment. Part of what we really want to do is build out additional resources that can be recycled beyond just the grant making that we do today. And so we believe the fundraising that we do today will not only get out the door in the immediate and near future, but then can be recycled in the form of that loan fund and those impact investments that are embedded in an endowment, which would provide financial resources for forest management in perpetuity for generations to come. And that's the work that a community foundation can really start to bring to bear as it relates to structuring those dollars. Next slide. And so here we have kind of another way of looking at what is a $30 million campaign. So when the board made a resolution of a $30 million capital campaign, I can honestly say I felt like the dog that caught the truck and was like, what is this? I can honestly say that it just is the right thing to do. They wanted to be bold. They wanted it to be significant. They want to make a dent in the problem. And it's time for this region to attract the types of resources that we need so that so many of these organizations can do the good work. How will those dollars be structured and where will they go? We have ideas of where those partners will come from and what they'll be working on, because we've been listening for 4 years. There's work to be done in collaboration and community engagement, building that stakeholder network that I mentioned, and advocacy. We believe there's innovative ways to challenge communities to take care of their defensible space when the right resources are brought to bear. We also think that there's collaboration out there that is ready to take place that we can help fund, matching grants for public dollars and seed grants for early stage funding. And then finally, to structure the regenerative aspect of it through a loan fund, impact investments, and an endowment. Okay, and then the remaining few slides here are really focused on, more of those details of what do you mean by community engagement, and what kind of network are you talking about, and what might you be advocating for. And you can see that we've really thought through different aspects, with each of these having, yet another strategy behind it. Next slide. And again, what kind of innovation challenges and who might these go to? And so we've just really been backing into how we can deploy those dollars and sequence them and prioritize them. Next slide. And make sure, again, that they are available to come back to the community over and over again so that our forests have more resources available to them in future generations, and we're not in this place ever again. So with that, I want to just take a moment and introduce some of our new team members. We'll take the slideshow down for this portion because I think it's important for you guys to get to know some of our new team members. That first person that you saw on the slide deck was Annie Rosenfeld, who has joined our team as the Director of Finance and Operations. And she, along with a few others, will ensure that the stability of the organization, operations, and finance are going to be just as quality aspect of our organization as it always has been. To undertake such a significant capital campaign, our board really wanted to ensure that we had that stability. And Kathy Whitlow is on the call here and is one of those members to make sure that the ship keeps running smoothly. We also have a program team focused in housing and on the safety net that are going to still continue to do the important work that we have committed ourselves to. But we also knew that we needed some more support in a few areas. And so I'm happy to introduce today Kate Frankfurt, who's joined as our Chief Philanthropy Officer, Sachet Cantu, who has joined us as the Director of Impact Investment, and Nicole Muller, who has joined us as the Forest Futures Program Director. And so with that, what I would love to do is talk to you guys a little bit. I'd love for Kate first to just start with her background and also what excites her about this work or what she thinks is unique about this work as she comes into her new role.
Sure. Thank you, Stacy. Hi, everybody. Thanks all for joining and on the late part of an afternoon. I think that the Forest Futures campaign is one of the most exciting campaigns that I've come across in a long time. And I like to choose projects really carefully. And there are always components that I feel are very important to them for me to participate. And the first one is a lot of integrity. And this one definitely has it. I've come from a background which has been fairly varied. Beginning as a social worker, but finding my way into doing philanthropy work because I really wanted to connect people with the important projects that would move communities to create more healthy systems. And certainly this kind of project in a place that I love dearly is incredibly important that we pay attention to now. It's entrepreneurial, it's bold, it takes to account the kind of community that we have now and the things that we need to do now on the ground, like defensible space and things like that, just to make the every fire season that much healthier for us. But it also looks to the future, and it looks to the future of our community, and it looks to a future where a community perhaps not based solely on tourism, perhaps not based solely on snow sports, things that are very kind of unstable, right, as we go forward, and creates a new opportunity for our community to really continue to be a place where people can come and live. And there's an enormous amount of wealth in our community now. And so I'm excited to be able to tap into that wealth, to tap into the love that a whole new group of people have for this place, and get them bringing their philanthropic dollars here, as well as to the other causes that they care about. But that's one of the big challenges that I'm excited about. And this campaign, I think, really helps to address so many issues in the community that there isn't one that I think is left untouched. So that's why I'm excited.
I appreciate that. Sachet, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your thoughts on this campaign?
Sure thing. And thanks, Kate. I think you're getting us all fired up. And I just have to say that it's really exciting as a previous participant and audience member and Forest Futures to be back in this capacity. So For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Sashay Kantu. I grew up actually on the west side of the county in Grass Valley. And I was actually lucky enough to get my start working in a community development financial institution, which in layman's term is a nonprofit lender that's making dollars available to small business owners based on social impact criteria. And, essentially looking at the past 2 decades, I really look at all the work that I've done as existing at kind of this nexus between public policy issues on the community level and philanthropy, and have had the good fortune of working in both urban and rural communities and across sectors. Most recently, prior to coming on board, I served as the community giving manager for BBVA USA, and that was prior to its acquisition by PNC Bank earlier this year. And during the 8 years I was with the bank, I led grant making programs really aimed at financial inclusion, as well as making a marked impact in low and moderate income communities. And when I think about truly what is most exciting about this work, particularly with Forest Futures, I think about the opportunity to be truly generous with our learning. This is something also I think Stacy gave mention to in showing the impact strategies, just around really sharing and replicating what is, potentially can be true at the community level. And I just think the learning is so important, both on the process side when we're thinking about how we're bringing on new funding partners, but also as we think about the longer term outcomes and really trying to be creative and defining new models for what a community foundation can look like. And so, I sit here day 4 on the job, just really feeling very fortunate to be able to draw on a distinct set of skills and experiences that's also paired with a deep rooted love and I nerd out on community economic development. So I just, I think also would just share personally that I really bring what I feel like is kind of a pairing of art and science, and just no belief that so oftentimes the evidence-based solutions really already exist at the community level. So having this opportunity to work in partnership thoughtfully with a variety of partners on this to elevate support and figure out how to creatively finance these projects, I'm really, really excited to be here. So thanks.
Thank you, Sashay. And Nicole.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole Lutz Muller. I think I've met quite a few of you actually before this role. Let's see, I've been in Tahoe for 13 years now. I finished college up here and have an environmental science background, and spent the last 2.5 years prior to this role starting and developing the Sierra Corps Forestry Fellowship Workforce Program with the Sierra Nevada Alliance. So we were trying to bridge the gap of staffing capacity in forestry work, specifically in the Sierra, and had a really interesting experience doing that, getting to know a lot of the smaller nonprofits and organizations throughout the Sierra that are trying to increase the pace and scale of forest restoration on the ground, but are facing a wide variety of roadblocks. And oftentimes one of those roadblocks is just not having enough staff or not being able to afford the staff they need to get the projects done. And prior to that, I also participated in a few workforce development programs. I've served 2 terms of AmeriCorps in various natural resource management positions, one with the Alpine Watershed Group down in Markleeville, and the other one with the Bureau of Land Management in Nevada. And then I spent 2 years in the private sector as well as a GIS analyst, doing data visualization for forest health with a company based out of Truckee. So I feel like I've kind of gotten my feet wet into the different types of organizations that play a role in natural resource management and in forestry management, specifically in the Sierra, being able to work for the government, the private sector, and for various nonprofits. And I'm really excited to bring that experience to try to figure out what some of these best practices and solutions can be for our region in terms of the North Tahoe Truckee region, but then, like Stacy spoke to at the beginning, also recognizing that forests and ecosystems don't have jurisdictional boundaries, and so our work's going to go beyond that. And I think having gotten familiar with a lot of the players in this effort of forest management in California and throughout the Sierra, I'm really excited to continue working with a lot of the people that I have been working with kind of on the workforce side, and hopefully being able to continue down the workforce development path with some of our work in this program. And then for me, kind of the new exciting part of it is the impact investing and the regenerative finance side of this program that I haven't gotten to do a lot of. I've been a grant recipient in most of my previous roles. So grant making and trying to make this a sustainable program that can continue on its own feet is super exciting to me, to see this like big picture campaign instead of just traditionally going after, you know, individual grants to just fund your projects is the kind of roles I've been in. So that's one thing that I'm really excited to work with Sashay and Kate on, and the whole TTCF family, as well as all of you that are on this call. And then I think I've been deeply engaged in the North Tahoe Truckee community since I moved here during college. I've served on the North Tahoe Regional Advisory Council to Placer County for the past 5 years, helping make recommendations on land use projects for the North Tahoe Truckee community, and have also spent a lot of time in partisan politics, in volunteer roles, and in elected and appointed roles in partisan politics, which is a very interesting perspective on governance and public engagement in governance. And so bringing that to the table as well, I think will be a really interesting way to analyze some of these issues and figure out some of the most effective solutions that we can come up with moving forward.
It's awesome. It makes me want to do this. Yes. Yes to all three of y'all and the rest of the badass TTCF team and board. Wow. Yeah. So awesome. I am curious to put my new team members on, and you can popcorn, so nobody's totally on the spot, but you know, TTCF's mission is so broad, right? We are here to serve the community. We're one of 800 plus community foundations around the country. There go my lights. And, you know, every community foundation reflects what the needs and opportunities of the communities that they serve really are. And we know that, you know, from an initiative standpoint, our board has approved, you know, not only do we do the grant making and the scholarships that people know us for, but these initiatives of strengthening our families through working with our safety net organizations, to, you know, seeking housing solutions for our local community, because housing is just, you know, at an all-time high crisis, to this forest initiative, and then also impact investing using, you know, creative financing across all of those missions. But as you guys have been getting engaged in this work, you're hearing about those different other areas of housing and safety net. And I'm just curious how you guys think about that. Where are those connections? Where's that connective tissue other than these are all issues in the community? I'm just very curious, you know, what you guys have kind of picked up on as it relates to how does the forest work really like overlap with these other areas of impact that TTCF has been focused on, in your opinion?
I will jump in. One of the things that I worked on when I lived in San Francisco quite a number of years ago now was a trauma-informed approach to a healthy community. And one of the things that I think that we know is that everything that happens in a community has an impact on the community as a whole. So our housing crisis and the housing instability creates all sorts of other areas of sort of stress and uncertainty, and those kind of have ripple effects through the community. And so one of the things that I like to think about as I think about this holistic approach, and really coming from a place of really wanting to make sure that my fellow community members have the best life that they can have, is to make sure that the kinds of stressors that can really fracture a community and really kind of fray the social safety net, fray people's mental health, their ability to, you know, to work well, their kids in schools worried about the wildfires and things of that nature, people worried about whether they have housing, all of these things, and the instability around all of them just compound themselves So if we can take care of one of the most fundamental aspects of our community's health and well-being, which is that we are going to do everything that we can as a community to make sure that our community is here tomorrow when we wake up. That, I know we have one of the participants, Maria, has been experiencing the Dixie Fire. And I'm sure, Maria, you could speak a lot to sort of all of the ripple effects that that had on you and your community and in your life that are not just specific to the fire, but sort of it cascades down. And if we can put this fundamental safety position in place and know that it's not just for today, but it's for tomorrow, then that the sense of a surety that we are doing everything that we can, I think adds a really important layer to the way that the rest of the community will be healthy. It will help our kids do better in school. It will help our housing situation because people won't be so so afraid of the houses burning down. We can address the housing crisis by bringing more resources to this area just generally. And this is one really important way to do it because this particular way of bringing resources, this particular reason knows no boundaries. This will affect absolutely everybody. This is not an issue of one one area of wealth versus an area of economic insecurity. This is all of us together. And I don't think there's another issue in the community that crosses all of those boundaries.
Thank you, Kate. Sashay, Nicole, anything to add? No pressure.
Yeah, I think I would add that I completely agree with Kate, but also the crossover between these kind of social issue impact areas when you're thinking about housing or mental health, and then also something like forest health and wildfire resilience. I think it's really important that we think about the intersection of those issues as we make plans for the future as well. So being reactionary is super important, and doing more defensible space around homes that are already built and putting fuel breaks in communities that are already built is super important. But I also think it's really important to think about where we're building in the future, whether we're building an affordable housing community within the wildland urban interface, and if that's really the smartest decision. It might be a cheaper decision, but in the end, is that really where you're going to want to put a low-income housing structure that then is at a higher risk to fire damage in the future? So I don't really think we can think about these issues individually. We have to think about them intersecting as we plan for the future as well. And then I think we're already doing that on the reactionary side, but we need to make sure we're doing it as we move forward. And when we're updating our general plans and land use zoning designations, we really have to be smart about those intersections.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, Sashay, I'm going to take that as you're good. Well, then that gives us a little bit of time to open it up for questions. And I just want to also acknowledge that we have a couple advisors on the line today here. Of course, Kristen, I recognized as one of my board members, but also we have Megan McTiernan, who served as an advisor along the way over the years. And then shout out to Allison Edelstein, who also is really helping us on the campaign strategy side. So there's a lot of friendlies in the room, and a lot of people have been thinking about this for a long time. And so I just want to encourage any questions or thoughts that you would like to share at this point.
Stacy, I'll share for a moment.
Sure.
I have to say, I think one of the most exciting things for me, I've been on the board, I don't know how many years, but as you know, we've been following this forest health, forest futures for a long time, and it truly is systemic. So when I hear Kate talking about the philanthropy and the investment side, and I hear Sashay talking about the true economic development impacts, and Nicole talking about the same thing, it resonates with me because the forest doesn't stop at our boundary, right? We are all connected, and truly anybody who study trees know that they're connected. And I think it's important that we look at it that way. I'm so glad Morea's on the call. They're the other super exciting thing for me recently was in the Forest Entrepreneurship workshop series that Sierra Institute is doing. We're lucky enough to help them with there's a company out of Colorado that is making small scale CLT out of Douglas fir. And there's so much innovation and these micro businesses that are going to step forward to solve that problem. We also have Bob Hambrick on the call, who's looking at statewide approaches to salute. And all the work we've been doing for literally years, the timing is so good. So I just thank you for bringing this back. I really appreciate it. Timber Age, yeah, Morea. I'm going to send it. This is an exciting company. Timber Age is really, really cool.
Great, thank you, Kristen.
Mm-hmm. And I bet Morea would agree. We should have a Timber Age in every forested community.
Oh, yes. And I'd like to see it at the high schools.
Yes, yes. Gosh, that'd be awesome.
Part of the shop program. I mean,
yeah,
anything.
So cool. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Maria, you're going up on my list of we need to talk priority. So let's get on the calendar. Megan, any comments as you've seen the evolution of this work? I'm calling you out, girl.
I know you always do. Anyway, I'm just excited to be here. I think it's one of the most. My name is Megan McTiernan. I'm a donor advisor based in San Francisco who's been following this work for quite a few years, along with TTCF and Kristen and the team. And I'm just so excited to see what's coming together. It seems like one of the most ambitious projects happening right now in Tahoe with a tremendous vision. And I look forward to continuing to be a part of, the work as it moves. So thanks for putting, and I'm particularly excited with the new members of your team. I mean, it just seems like you've just done such a fantastic job of building out the house over the last year, and I'm excited to see what you ladies all put together for the rest of us.
Thank you, Megan. How about you, Allison? Any comments to share?
Obviously, you know how enthusiastic I am about this work and about this campaign, and dedicating myself as a volunteer to this campaign for the next 3 years. I think the only thing that hasn't been said should be said out loud, which is we really welcome each and every one of you to get personally involved in this campaign, whether it's philanthropically or as an advisor or as a volunteer. There's so much work to be done. There are so many conversations to be had. There's so many doors that need to be opened. So I would like to give a personal invitation to anyone here and to your friends and your friends' friends. Please talk about this. Please discuss it at dinner parties. Please share your enthusiasm, and we really welcome you into our team.
Heck yeah. So thank you, Allison. Okay, so let's hear any questions or thoughts the rest of you guys have as you've been caught up on our summer activities and the shape of this work.
It's Maria, and I don't have a question. I just want to share my heartfelt thanks to all of you for this vision and your work. My community's hurting, and I want to be a part of building it back better. And that's, whether that's in my role professionally at Sierra Institute, or, I'm also on the Planning Commission. I represent Indian Valley, which has Greenville, Canyon Dam, and Indian Falls. But I just want to say, this experience, you have your highs and your lows. And right now you've given me a high that I really needed. So thank you. I'm so moved that you all are here, that you're envisioning it beyond your own borders and with so much grace and kindness and generosity, including your neighboring communities. So thank you. And I'm going to be calling to volunteer.
We'll be coming to help. Yeah, thank you. Other thoughts? Okay. Well, we'd love to hear from you.
I
It's
see a question,
ambitious.
Stacy, in the chat. I don't know if you.
Yes, yes. In fact, there's a number of studies that have informed this work, and I do wish that Teal was on the call, but that and California Forward and their kind of agenda. There's just been a number, the Joint Institute of Woody Biomass. So Chance, forgive me if I can't speak directly to it. And Nicole, I'm opening it up to you as the other kind of forestry wonk in the room. But yes, and Chance, is there something specific that you see some connections that you want to draw out there?
Trying to find both my mute buttons here. Yeah, thanks for the thought, Stacy, and nothing too specific. I just sort of seeing those 10 pillars specifically show up in a few different places, and it looks like the Forest Service themselves is maybe picking it up a little bit and trying to incorporate sort of those pillars, and they sort of cover the broad spectrum of it. It's not just work in the forest, it's also the financial component, it's also the environmental piece and the economics around it, and of course the fire side. So it's just kind of looking at it from those different angles, and certainly yeah, I'm just kind of starting to learn more about it myself, and some of the work that we're doing this year as well.
We're actually kind of memorializing this strategy in a bit of a position paper, just so we can kind of showcase the partners and the thinking that helped it. So stand by for that. But we really see the Forest Service, SNC, the National Forest Foundation, all of these partners that are out in the community as organizations that we want to amplify their work. We want to align our funding. We see you, we don't want to compete, we want to see it grow and what you guys are doing. And so hopefully we can get that position paper out, and you can kind of start to unpack some of these reports that we've been weaving into this work. Other questions, thoughts?
This is Evan here. Hey, no, I just wanted to mention I did really like the point about using these private philanthropic dollars to help go after some of these state dollars. I think that's going to be really key moving forward and helping us sort of diversify ourselves from others and helping us stand out in terms of competition. There's a lot of money, but there's endless amounts of work to be done. So really great point. And the other, I did have a question as well. And I was wondering, I did see, what did you call it? Not restorative finance, but innovative finance. Yeah, I did see that mentioned. And one of the words I didn't see was sort of a conservation finance, blue forest finance model, where I'm sure you guys have heard, beneficiaries pay into it. Is that something you guys have looked at? Because there are programs like the Innovative Finance on National Forests program that we help oversee that helps provide seed funding for those sorts of endeavors and things like that. So just had a question on that too.
Yeah, Evan, first of all, thank you. And just recognizing your role is really one of the nonprofits that secures the contracts with the Forest Service so that you can, as a nonprofit, be more nimble, go after the right kind of labor and equipment that you need faster than most government entities. And so you really are in a position where you're going after a lot of those competitive public grants. And we, every time we sit down in front of a donor, we talk about the importance of structuring philanthropic dollars to align so that our region can be more competitive and secure those, additional dollars that are in the state budget. For the first time, we're seeing some good money come forward, but our experience in securing public dollars for our housing work is exactly that. It's super competitive. And sometimes you have to go after it multiple years. And in this case, we really don't have years to give to chasing tax credits and funds and things like that. So yes, and as far as Blue Forest and other mechanisms like the forest bond, 100%. I see different places within this campaign where those dollars can be put to use. We've been, looking at where there are partners where they can be locally focused, because that will be primarily our interest is around the local projects. So we will be very open to, your thoughts about that and where they can be structured. And then I think the other aspect, which our board is going to probably structure a different investment policy around the endowment that's related for the Forest Futures, which will allow us to have a perpetual investment in something like a CDFI or these forest bonds related to the way that we manage the investment side of the endowment. So it's pretty exciting to think about that. And I would just say, come on with your ideas on that one. If Blue Forest is structuring some projects that are here locally, then yes. And if there's others out there, we're super interested. Okay,
Stacy,
we
take
have
a look at the chat. Rebecca had a question. Looking at more small scale efforts in the area, as well as these large scale ones that we are talking about. And so just focusing on that a little bit. And then we also have Maria, who gave a really nice response about what's happening down in her area.
That's great.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, to kind of answer Rebecca's question, I think this effort, the Forest Futures program, is going to be helping propel some of these smaller scale efforts financially. So we probably wouldn't be the ones implementing on the ground a prescribed burn project itself, but rather providing the missing links of the finances or the workforce to allow an organization like CHIPS to put a crew on the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit and do prescribed burning, or support the Washoe tribe doing cultural burn, and definitely respecting and honoring and uplifting traditional ecological knowledge and where we're giving our money out. So that's kind of how this program will integrate into those smaller scale on the ground projects.
What else? Okay. Well, I really want to just thank you all for your time and encourage you to reach out to us. You know where to find us. We are really excited, and we know that it's going to take all of us working together to really make this difference and see this vision through. Caroline has dropped the future salons, a link to those in the chat. So we hope to see you at our next one, which I believe is October 27th. And we'll be talking about biomass basics at that and featuring some of the biomass projects that are taking place around the region. So with that, thank you again, and to my team, thank you, and to everyone who gave of your time. Really appreciate it. Have a great evening.